Hello and welcome to Learn English Unleashed. I'm John. Can I ask you something? Why does speaking English feel so hard even after months or even years of learning? Maybe you know hundreds of English words. Maybe you understand YouTube videos. Maybe you can read English quite well. But the moment someone looks at you and says, "Can you tell me about yourself?" your mind suddenly goes quiet. Why does that happen? Stay with me, because the answer might surprise you, and before the end of this episode, you'll discover 5 simple practices that can make speaking English feel much easier. Not tomorrow, not next year. Starting today. Now don't worry, you don't need perfect grammar. You don't need a British accent. You don't need an American accent. And you don't need to study for hours every day. Even if you're busy, even if you feel nervous, even if you failed before. This episode is for you, because I know how that feels. Years ago, I thought good speakers were simply born with confidence. I believed they had a special talent that I didn't have. But I was wrong. And maybe you've been believing the same thing. Here's something interesting. What if speaking English isn't difficult because your English is bad? What if it feels difficult because your brain is trying to do too many things at the same time? Think about that for a moment. You're trying to remember words. You're checking grammar. You're worrying about mistakes. You're thinking about pronunciation. And at the same time, you're trying to keep the conversation going. That's a lot for one brain. No wonder speaking feels hard. But here's the good news. There is a much easier way, and we're going to explore it together. So let me ask you another question. Have you ever finished watching an English video and thought, I understood almost everything? But later, you couldn't say even 2 sentences about it. If that has happened to you, you're not alone. In fact, it happens to thousands of English learners every single day. And the reason is much simpler than most people think. We'll come back to that in just a moment. But first, let's begin with our first practice. Practice 1. Here's a small secret. Children don't learn to speak by reading grammar books. They listen, they copy, they try again. And little by little, speaking becomes natural. You can learn in a very similar way. But there's one important difference. You don't need hours. You only need 2 minutes. Choose a short English clip. It could be a podcast, a short interview, or even a 1-minute travel video. Listen to one sentence. Pause. Now say exactly what you heard. Don't rush. Copy the speed. Copy the pauses. Copy the feeling. It doesn't matter if your voice sounds different. You're training your mouth and your ears to work together. Let's try something together. Repeat after me. I'll give it another try. One more time. I'll give it another try. Excellent. Did you notice something? You weren't thinking about every grammar rule. You were simply following the speaker. That's exactly the point. Now here's your 2-minute challenge. Tomorrow morning, while your coffee or tea is getting ready, find one short English clip. Repeat just 3 sentences. That's all. Only 2 minutes. Don't aim to sound perfect. Aim to sound a little more comfortable than yesterday, because small improvements create big results. And in a moment, I'll show you another practice that most learners completely ignore. It's simple, it feels almost too easy, but it can change the way your brain prepares English sentences. Let's discover it together. Welcome back. Before we move on, let me ask you something. Have you ever noticed this? When you're alone, English feels easier. But the moment another person starts listening, your confidence disappears. Why? Because your brain is trying to be perfect, and perfection slows you down. Confidence grows from action, not from perfect grammar. Keep that thought in your mind, because this next practice can change the way you think when you speak. Practice 2. Most learners wait for someone to start a conversation, but you don't have to wait. You can create your own. Here's how. As you go through your day, quietly describe your next action in simple English. For example, I'm opening my laptop. I need to check this document. I'm grabbing a glass of water. The traffic is a bit slow. Small sentences, simple words, real life. This teaches your brain to build English naturally, one idea at a time. Now let's practice together. Repeat after me. I'm ready to begin. Again. I'm ready to begin. Great. Now your 2-minute challenge. Choose one small activity today. Maybe checking your desk, maybe folding your jacket, maybe taking an evening break. For just 2 minutes, describe what you're doing in English. Don't stop. Don't worry if you repeat words. Just keep speaking. You'll be surprised how much easier it becomes. But here's another question. What happens after you learn a new word? Do you remember it next week? Or does it quietly disappear? If that sounds familiar, this next practice is exactly what you need. Practice 3. Learning a new word isn't enough. You need to use it quickly. Imagine you hear the phrase, take your time. Don't just smile and move on. Use it the same day. You could say, take your time, I'm not in a hurry. Or, take your time, we still have a few minutes. One phrase, 2 real situations. Now your brain starts remembering it. Let's try one together. Repeat after me. Take your time. Once more. Take your time. Excellent. Now your 2-minute challenge. Today, learn just one new phrase. Not 10. Just one. And use it aloud 3 times before the day ends. You'll remember far more than if you tried to learn a long list. But wait. Let me ask you one last question before we continue. Have you ever been in a situation where you wanted to say something in English? You knew the words in your head, but the moment you opened your mouth, your brain suddenly felt completely empty, like every single word you learned had vanished? You stood there, smiling nervously, and your mind went completely blank. If that has ever happened to you, don't worry. It is not because your memory is bad. It is simply because of a small mistake. A hidden trap that almost every learner falls into. But how do we fix it? How do we make sure your brain finds the right words at the right moment? We are going to discover the answer in just a moment. Because in the next part, we will explore Practice 4 and Practice 5. 2 very simple, everyday habits that will help you unlock your memory. and make sure you never run out of words again. Are you ready? Let's keep going. Practice 4. Here's something many learners never do. They learn, they understand, then they move on. But your brain remembers what you bring back. So every evening, choose one sentence you spoke yesterday. Say it again today, then make one small change. For example, yesterday you said, "I'm waiting for my friend." Today you can say, "I'm waiting for my friend outside the cafe." Same idea. One new detail. Little by little, your English becomes richer. Now let's practice together. Repeat after me. Every day I can say a little more. Again, every day I can say a little more. Perfect. Your 2-minute challenge. Before you go to bed tonight, remember one English sentence you used today. Say it again, then add one new detail. Only 2 minutes. Your memory will become stronger every single day. But there's one final practice. And in my opinion, this is where confidence really begins. Practice 5. Speak before you're ready. Many learners have one big habit. They wait. I'll speak when my grammar is better. I'll speak when I know more words. I'll speak next month. But next month becomes next year. Confidence doesn't come before speaking. Confidence comes because of speaking. Start with simple sentences. Smile. Take your time. Keep going. Every conversation teaches you something, even the awkward ones. Now repeat after me. I don't need perfect English to start. Again. I don't need perfect English to start. Excellent. Your 2-minute challenge today. Start one tiny conversation. It could be with a friend, a classmate, an online language partner, or even yourself in front of a mirror. 2 minutes. That's enough. Because the hardest part is not speaking. The hardest part is starting. A small story before we finish. Let me tell you about Lucas. He used to say the exact same thing. "John, I understand English, but I can't speak." He was always waiting for his grammar to be perfect. But then he decided to change his strategy. He started bringing yesterday's sentences back. And he forced himself to speak before he felt ready. A few weeks later, he came back, not because he had learnt thousands of new words, not because his grammar had become perfect, but because he had practiced for just 2 minutes every day. Slowly, his pauses became shorter, his voice became calmer, and one day, he stopped saying, "I can't speak English." Instead, he smiled and said, "I'm still learning, but now I'm speaking." And honestly, that's the real goal. Not perfection, progress. Keep showing up, keep speaking. One small step today will become a big change tomorrow. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care and keep unleashing your English.